yesterday we saw how the invoices could be entered. Okay, how we can input all the details and the supplier level information and all those things. We had seen how to enter an invoice. Okay, that's fine. So before that, we need a supplier record to be available. Okay, for us to be able to enter the invoices. Now, how to create that supplier, and what are the details with respect to the supplier, that or what are the prerequisites setups that are required for supplier creation, that today we will have a look at. And then to day after tomorrow you guys won't be having a session, okay, for your batch. I actually need to go to some a personal task that needs to be taken care, so no session tomorrow. Okay, so today we will see the supplier configuration. So as a prerequisite for that, okay, there are certain aspects or certain steps that need to be covered. Okay, now what are those? Basically, supplier creation. For that, first of all, your user needs to be assigned as an employee. Okay, assign employee record for your user. That is first step or a prerequisite. Okay, and the second step is to create procurement agent, okay, for your user record. Okay, and the third thing is assign the supplier supplier head manager role to your user. That is the third step. And then fourth step is creation of the create supplier record. Okay, and then in under that you have multiple segments to it. So first you create the supplier profile. Okay, and then supplier profile. Okay, then you create the supplier address. Okay, and then we create the supplier site, and then the last is the supplier site assignment. Okay, so these are the few of the setups that you need to do with respect to the supplier creation. Okay, ideally, say from an implementation perspective, if you ask me, financial people are not the ones who do the supplier creation or maintenance and management of the supplier records. It is generally the procurement team who does it. But it is a good to know thing, okay, how the supplier records can be created and managed. Okay, but then why the procurement team is doing that? The reason is with respect to supplier records, actually, there are certain approvals and everything that are put in place. Okay, so in a real life business, if you look at it, when a supplier information or a data is being entered, there are certain approvals also that would be required as part of the business process. Okay, for entering the supplier records. This similarly for updating the supplier records with the necessary bank accounts of the supplier. There are certain there is a certain department, or not either department, I would say a particular employee who would actually be tasked with managing of the supplier details. So in that process, as per the business policy, they might have set certain approval rules and hierarchies as well. Okay, so in such a scenario, it is generally the procurement team who does the entire setup. Right now, what supplier records, whatever we are creating, okay, it is without any approvals. Okay, so all the approvals related to supplier management has been disabled. Okay, so that we can directly create the records, okay, without any issues with the approval process. Okay, so just explaining this as a backdrop so that you have an understanding of how in real life business it is done. Okay, but and from a finance perspective, why we are looking at it, so that we have an understanding of it, and there are certain financial related controls, okay, that we place on the supplier side level. Okay, so that is the reason we will understand its configuration in entirety. Okay. All right. So first of all, we will see the prerequisite. Okay, how to create. Okay, or how to first of all create an employee record and assign it to the user. Now again, employee records are created by the human capital management, consultants. Okay, who are tasked with creating of the employees and populating all the details related to the employee records. And then and each user ID is then assigned to the employees as well, employee record as well. Okay, that is majorly a task from by the HCM department. But since we are doing it right now for our training purpose, we will see how an employee record with the bare basic detail can be created. Okay, so that is our first step. So for that, let us go to setup and maintenance. And in the setup and maintenance, okay, we will go to a task. So select financials and then go to the task called manage user. Okay, this one, manage users. Okay, and in here, let's say we are adding a new employee, and also we will create from there itself the user ID also. Okay, so we will say add. Okay, here input the last name. Okay, so let me say okay, Raj Thakkar, let's say Raj Thakkar. First name is Raj and last name is Thakkar, and let's say the middle name title. Okay, middle name not required. Title is Mr. Let's say, and email ID. We will give any dummy email ID. Okay, or let me say xyzabc dot com. Okay, and then hire date, it will be the current hire date. Okay, and then you can input the other details like phone and xyz. Let me change the instance. Sorry, this is not the correct instance where we were working. Again, going into setup and maintenance, financials, manage user. Okay, and here we are. Add and provide the details. Okay, Raj, Mr. email ID xyzabc.com. Don't provide actual email IDs. Okay, so because emails will get triggered. Okay, hire date will be the current date. And we have to create the user account also, okay, for this particular employee, let's say. So from here itself we can do the user account creation. Or if at all there is already a user account created, but now you are creating the employee record, in that case you will want to link that user, okay, user account that was created. So from here you can link it if at all already the user account is created. Right now for this person, no user account is created. That is where we will input the details here. Okay, okay, so that will be the username. Okay, user notification preferences. Do you want this to send the email for username and password? No. Okay, and person type. Here you need to select the person type as employee because you want to create it as an employee record. Okay, because certain aspects like the procurement agent, it works on the employee record. Okay, so that is where we are creating employee as a prerequisite step. Okay, legal employer. Okay, which is the legal employer? So you can provide something that is starting with vision. Okay, so Vision is the legal entity that is created by Oracle, and also it those legal entities would be enabled as a legal employer. Okay, so you can choose for any Vision related legal entity. Okay, and then business unit, you can select your own business unit for which under which you are working, or doing the setups. So in my case, let me just select ABC Corp, because these are mandatory information. Okay, generally these are done by the HCM team, and then they will even assign the job, grade, department, XYZ, all the other aspects related to the employee information. They will do it. But right now, the bare minimum things only we are assigning. Okay, and fine. These are the things that we have input. The username has been input. Okay, and details have been input, and then we will click on save and close. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, so the user has been created, the employee record has also been created. Now what we will do is we will go to the security administrator, okay, to see the details. Security console, sorry. Okay, see if the user account has been created or not, and reset the password as well. Okay, let's quickly check that. Security console. Okay, and I will say user Raj. Okay, so this has been created, and I will reset the password. Okay, manually change the password, and whatever password you want to provide. Reset password. Okay, and then click on done. So we will come back to the user role access. Okay, later once we are done with the previous steps. What are those? Basically this one. Okay, create procurement agent. That is our next step. Before that, there is one more. That is provide data access. Okay, our next step is to create the procurement agent. Okay, create procurement agent for the user record. So again, going to setup and maintenance. Financials, and we'll say manage procurement agent. Search, and here you have the select the BU, whichever BU for which you are creating it, and click on the, and it will take you to the task or the page for procurement agent creation. Okay, and then click on add. And here you need to provide the procurement BU. Okay. The BU under which you will do all the procurement activities or the purchasing activities. Okay. So that BU will be, let's say in our case, ABC Corp insurance BU, for which we are working on or doing the setups for, under which we will be doing the invoicing activities. Agent name. Okay. So Raj Tucker is the new employee that we created who is supposed to do this activity, right? So we can give the last name first and check for the details. Okay, so this is the employee name. And then default requisition BU, that is not something we are concerned about. Okay, and what else? What we need to make sure is this manage supplier below, agent access, what all this particular agent has access to. Okay, that agent access, you will have to say manage supplier, against that this should be allowed. Okay, so just make sure that this is allowed. By default, this will be allowed. Okay, and then the remaining ones that you see are actually to control the accesses to the certain purchasing activities like requisition, purchase order, and all. It is for that. Okay, but then what we are concerned right now is with the supplier. Okay, so we should be able to create the supplier under this particular BU. Okay, for that agent is required. Okay, so that is where we are assigning the employee record, Raj Shankar employee, as an agent for this particular procurement BU, who will be able to manage the suppliers. Okay, and then we will save and close. So that is the next step of creation of the procurement agent that we have completed. The third step is to,
can we use session.lab as a procurement agent?
You will have to see if there is an employee record associated to it or not. Okay, so let me quickly check that.
Otherwise, you need to create one for us.
Yes. Let me see EBV test instance. So how you can check if there is a employee record associated to it or not? So that will be, let me show you. So from the security console, I believe security console, you have access, right? Did Kumar give you the access?
No, that's the problem actually. Yes.
Still not given.
Can you please tell him actually?
I have asked him to do that, but anyways, I will remind him. Probably he might have missed on. Let me see. It is there in the tools. Let me see if there is security console. It's not there. Configuration structure, it is not there. Extensions, do we have something? It's not there. Okay, I will add or maybe ask Kumar to add the employee record to your session.lab. You can also share that employee details. Okay, all right. And then you will have to create this procurement agent. Okay, so that thing you will have to do. All right. So we have saved it, and then the next step would be to go to the security console. So I will just go to my security console. search for the user account. Okay, and then I will edit. And what is the role required for managing the supplier? It is called the supplier manager. So I will say add role and supplier manager. And then add role membership. Okay, and click on done. Okay, save and close. Save and close. Okay, and then click on done. So the role access has been provided. After every time a role has been assigned, the next step is to run the retrieve LDAP process. Okay, so for that I will go to schedule process. Schedule new process and retrieve LDAP percentage tab. So this is the program name that got fetched, and I'll click on OK and then submit. So for right now, it will be blocked. After a few minutes, it will, the status will be updated as succeeded. Okay, it is working. Okay, it is blocked now. So after a few minutes, it will automatically be set status as, the succeeded. And after that, when you go to that person's login, raj.trucker, you will be able to see the supplier manager, or under the procurement, you will be able to see the supplier work area where you can create or manage the supplier record. Okay, so let it, run. And by that time, we will just add the data access. Okay, so setup and maintenance, financials, and we will say manage business unit data access. That is the task. Business unit data access for users. Click on that. Okay, and select the scope as your view. It will take you to this page. Manage data access for users. Click on add. Okay, and provide the username. Okay, so whichever username it is. So in your case, it will be your user.session.lab. That is what you will have to provide. And then the role and the security context will be the business unit. Okay. Okay, the role is supplier manager role. Security context is your business unit, and context value is the ABC Corp in that case, because that is the BU for which the procurement agent record has been created. Okay, and then save and close.
For invoice processing, what are the roles we need to add?
It is accounts payable invoice supervisor and accounts payable manager. Those are the roles you will have to add. That is there in yesterday's session recording. So what I will do is today's session recording, I will place it as before yesterday's, so that that sequence can be set. Okay, while you're watching the videos, I will ask Kumar to do it that way. Thank you. Okay, so this supplier, access has been provided to that particular ID. Okay, then you can log into that ID and go to the supplier task workbench, and then you will be able to see. So for the Chris William ID also, the access has been provided for the supplier manager. Okay, so that is where when you click on navigator, you will see, you will go to procurement. Where is it? Procurement. Here. And under procurement, you will have something called suppliers. Click on suppliers and it will take you to the supplier workbench. So in that supplier workbench, you will have multiple things like supplier spend authorization, because these are all the dashboards that will give you certain information or with actionable, items. Okay, so supplier spend authorization request, as I mentioned, right? So there are certain approvals and workflows as it is called. Okay, for the approvals, there is a workflow. Okay, that is configured. So the rules where every rules are configured, and according to that, it will be sent for approval and all. Okay, so in such scenarios, if it is, I will explain what is spend authorization. Okay, but yeah, for those approvals, it will show you the information here. Okay, pending approval or rejected, and accordingly, the action can be taken by the supplier administrator. Then similarly, business classification. What a business classification is, that also I will explain. These are actually with respect to certain certifications that the suppliers obtain in the market. Okay, which enhances their credibility and gives them an edge over other suppliers in the market. So generally these kind of certifications are required when you are internationally trading, or specifically for that matter when you are dealing in pharmaceutical manufacturing. Okay, that means the medicine manufacturing industry if you are in, or similarly certain research fields, or for all, generally right now in today's world you will see certification being issued, or accreditations as it is called, being issued for almost all supplier related organizations, supplier as in trading organizations or manufacturing organizations and all, which enhances their credibility in the market. Okay, so that is where certain certifications that they acquire, that expires after some time, so they need to renew their certifications, and so such kind of expiring or expired certifications will be displayed over here, and then you will request for that time period until they do not renew their certifications. You will probably want to keep the suppliers on hold. Okay, so such activities can be done. So this is just for that purpose. Okay, then supplier with incomplete setup, certain suppliers for which the setups are incomplete. Okay, that you would want to see no address, no contact, or no administrative contacts. So the supplier administrator would want to see those and then take necessary action accordingly. That is where this dashboard helps them. Okay, then supplier profile change request. So there was a change in the supplier profile details, like maybe addition of a bank account to the supplier record. So in such cases, if there is that is any kind of profile change and there are approvals enabled, then this dashboard will show them those details, and accordingly the supplier administrator or the manager can take an action. Okay, so these are the this is all about the dashboard. Now comes the part where we can see the tasks. So in this task list, you will see manage supplier, create supplier, then manage supplier registration request, import supplier, merge supplier. These are all the activities with respect to supplier that can be performed. Right now, what we will be seeing as the create supplier and manage supplier activity. So creation of the supplier, click on create supplier, and you will have to provide the name of the supplier. Okay, so let us say trading company. Okay, so this is the name of the supplier with which we are dealing in certain goods. Okay, business relationship. This is of importance. Okay, business relationship. You can assign the business relationship as prospective and assign the business relationship as spend authorized. Now, what does the prospective mean? So basically, prospective means this is a prospective supplier with whom you may enter into certain transactions, certain purchasing transactions in future. Right now it is a prospective supplier for you. Okay, with probably with whom you might be raising your quotations. Okay, to get the rates and all. Okay, but then right now that supplier is not something, or not, that is not a supplier with whom you have entered into a purchasing transaction. Okay, so that is where you define them as prospective suppliers. So all those suppliers, okay, with which is a prospective supplier for you, with whom you may enter into a transaction on a later date, on a future date, but right now you are not. Okay, so those kind of suppliers will be created as a prospective suppliers. So generally, prospective suppliers will be utilized, the record or the record related to those suppliers will be utilized for raising quotations. Okay, sending quotations and getting the quotation for the items. Okay, and those from those list of suppliers to whom you have sent the quotation, the supplier that gives you the best quotation, okay, with them you will finalize the deal. Okay, and then in turn that supplier will be elevated, the business relationship of that supplier will be elevated to spend authorized. So first time when it is created, it will be created as a prospective supplier, and then later on when you finalize that, you will enter into a deal or enter into a transaction, purchasing transaction with that supplier, the status of or the business relationship of that supplier will be elevated from prospective to spend authorized. Okay, so there is a process, okay, where you can do that. Okay, also there can be certain suppliers with whom you are already entered into a with whom you have already entered into a transaction, transactional agreement, or a transactional deals. So directly also you can create those suppliers as spend authorized. Okay, so in order for you to be able to create purchase orders, okay, in order for you to be able to create invoices, okay, against those these supplier records, you need to have the business relationship as spend authorized. Okay, so that is where directly we are creating the business relationship as spend authorized for this supplier, because we are concerned with creation of the invoices. Okay, that is the process that we are going to have a look at, and hence we have directly created the relationship as spend authorized. Okay, now tax organization type. So there is a tax organization type that you might want to associate with this particular supplier record. That is a mandatory thing. Okay, according to which their taxations and policies are would be applicable. Okay, within the jurisdiction in which or the tax jurisdiction under which the business is operating. Okay, so the tax organization type as a classification you might want to enter it. Okay, whether it is a government agency or a foreign partnership or a corporation, whatever the case is. Okay, then tax country. So tax country would be applicable, if at all you want to record the tax registration numbers and all. So definitely in a real life business, you will have those informations to be entered against the supplier record. Okay, so that is where you will first select the tax country. Let's say United States. And the tax registration number and the taxpayer ID that becomes active. So you can enter those information. Okay. So just as a dummy, I'm entering. Okay. Okay, DUNS number is actually a kind of a certification that is internationally received, and there is a specific unique number that is assigned. So further, if you want to just understand on the DUNS number, you can just Google it out and you will see with the explanation related to DUNS. Okay, so DUNS, just Google it out. Okay, so you will see. Number is a unique 9-digit identifier for businesses. So this is kind of an international, numbering that is allotted when you register with this organization. It is used to establish a Dun and Bradstreet business credit file, which is often referenced by lenders and potential business partners to help predict the reliability or financial stability of the company in question. Okay, so that is generally the DUNS number. Okay. So if there is that kind of number that the business has procured and you would want to enter it as part of their record, you can enter it, but then that is not mandatory. Okay, then click on create. So now we will enter the stage of supplier master record. Okay, where we will next have to complete the profile. So this is all detail that we have entered preliminarily. Okay, as a preliminary data that is part of the profile. So you see here it is under the profile tab for the supplier. Okay, so the name, similarly the tax organization type, the business relationship, okay, that has been recorded. Now, supplier type. So you might want to associate over and above the tax organization type, you might want to assign a supplier type to it. Okay, what type of supplier this is? Okay, whether it is an attorney or a logistic based supplier, okay, insurance company or a subcontractor, like that. There is a general classification that would be available. Some of the values would be available which is pre-populated by Oracle, but then some of the things or some of the names or the classification can be created or added to this list. Okay, so there is a setup okay for that. Okay, now what is that setup? I'll quickly help you out. So generally, whenever you find these kinds of like LOVs, okay, most of them are actually a lookup value. Okay, these are lookups generally in majority of the cases, not all cases, but majority of the cases. And for that, the respective module you will have to go to the lookups. Okay, like supplier. Now supplier I mentioned, right? This is part of the procurement module. Okay, so that is where you need to search for the procurement lookups. Okay, so how can you do that? So basically, let me go to the setup and maintenance. Okay, I'll go to setup and maintenance from here. And I will have to go to the procurement module from this list. Okay, so the parent module is somewhere you will find the lookups, okay, the respective lookups that are there on the pages. And I will say manage lookups. Okay, so you see here there is one thing that is coming up called supplier type lookup. Okay, so just select that and go inside it. So here you have this lookup. Okay, and under that you have all the lookup codes. So these are all the lookups that you will find. So now let me show you one of the case. Like in this supplier type, there is attorney as a value. So let's see if that is the case. If this particular value list of value has attorney as a value or not, just to make sure that this is the exact lookup. See, here it is. Okay, so similarly, if you want to create certain custom values, okay, then in that case you can add it and then you can create those, and then ultimately it will be available in this page. Okay, so those kind of classifications, if there are additional as per the business requirement, you will have to create. Okay, so
is there a way to find out easily?
No.
Supplier type means there will be that lookup. So you can, based on that, based on the naming itself, you can easily find out. So
generally,
how can we?
Generally, it is based on the naming that you will find out. Okay, see, some cases it is a direct lookup. Okay, but in some cases it is application wise. Okay, so let's say for example, when we understand further, when we go into payables more. Okay, at that point of time, I will show you some lookup that are related to payables. Okay, in that case, you will have to go to financials, and under payables, you will say manage payable lookup. Okay, so it is application wise also, sometimes the lookup would be there. Okay, and then inside that you will search with the keywords. Okay, keywords would be like, let's say for example, it is with respect to fixed assets, I will say if it is a retirement reason. Okay, then first of all you will go to fixed asset lookup, and in the keywords you will provide retirement percentage reason, and then you will try to find out. Okay, there is no easy way. Okay, easy way just by looking at the field you will be able to see the lookup. That is not possible. There is no way out directly. Okay, you will have to search in with the keywords, and then
it's all based on it's all based on experience. Yeah.
Exactly, it's all based on experience. With time you will be able to know all these aspects. But yeah, I have given you certain keywords you can enter and you can try to find out. Okay, so that is where I'm giving you the guidance. So first of all, try to see under which the page belongs to which application. Okay, then go to the setup and maintenance, search with that application name. Okay, and then under that you try to find out by inputting certain keywords. Okay, that is with respect to the field. Okay, whatever name of the field it shows, with that key, but with that name you try to enter a keyword. Okay, and then try to search it out and you will get it. Okay, it requires a little bit of practice. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Now, in this case, the supplier type we will associate. Now, there is an importance of supplier type. Okay, from a payment process perspective. Okay, so I told you, right, there are from a payment perspective, there are two types of payments that can be created, or in two types of processes that you can use for payment creation. One is single payment. Single payment means for one supplier you will create a single payment. Okay, but then there is another process called batch payments, or also known as, in Oracle terminology, it is called as payment process request. Okay, now in the payment process request, it is number of payments that you create in one go, or in one single process, you create multiple payments and payment files for multiple suppliers altogether. In so one of the so it is based on selection criteria. Okay, when you submit the payment process request, there are certain selection criterias which you can input for selecting the payments. Okay, so for selecting the invoice installments. Okay, so let's say, for example, and in one of that one of the search criteria is the supplier type. So based on the supplier type, you can tell or instruct the system to fetch all the records or all eligible invoices, okay, based on the supplier type. Okay, so that is a search criteria available, or a selection criteria available at that level. Okay, so that is where I will enter one supplier type or associate one supplier type with this. And then based on that, when we do the payment process, at that point of time, we will select it and try to see if the system identifies all those suppliers which have that particular type and fetches the records. Okay, so I will associate miscellaneous suppliers against this particular supplier record. Okay. And then, we will go down to the organization level details. Under the profile details, you will see a lot many other aspects. Okay, registry ID this is automatically generated. Relationship with supplier. Identification, as I mentioned, DUNS number is one such case. Then national insurance number, corporate website. Okay, so corporate website URL you can provide here. Okay, similarly, there would be some customer number or SIC. Okay, so these are certain identification numbers that can be created. Okay, then similarly, corporate profile. Okay, this is again used in the supplier quality. What do you say? Review and analysis, supplier record analysis. Okay, at that point of time, based on multiple things, the suppliers are chosen to be dealt with or traded with. Okay, multiple factors are there right now in today's business world. The supplier details are highly scrutinized. Okay, to see the dealings and to accordingly to enter into an agreement with the supplier. Not all suppliers would be entered into. There are certain criteria that they have to meet. The suppliers have to meet for businesses to enter into a trading relation with them. Okay, so lot many aspects are actually considered. So that is the reason you will see under the profile, these all details or fields are available. Corporate profile, financial profile. Okay, all of them also would be populated in a real life business. Okay, then business classification. As I mentioned, business classifications are all about certain accreditations and certifications that are that are to be associated with the supplier. So those records you will have to maintain in your master, in your supplier master. Okay, so that is where you will add the business classification and even track it. Okay, so that is the reason in a particular business, a supplier administrator in itself is a job, a separate job that is assigned to a person who is actually supposed to maintain, manage, analyze, okay, the supplier records, the supplier masters. Then products and services, whatever the supplier is dealing in, that can be added here. Okay, similarly, a transaction tax. Okay, so with respect to the place or the jurisdiction under which the supplier is operating, certain tax applicability would be there. Okay, so let's say if you take the example of India itself. Okay, so one supplier working in or that is trading in India, okay, in a particular state, for them a certain tax profile would be applicable. Okay, because state wise the taxes are different. The tax applicability is different. Hence the tax profile will be associated. The transaction tax. Okay. There are multiple reasons, okay, to maintain this profile from a transaction tax perspective. Similarly, from an income tax perspective, also there are certain things that are to be maintained, like the tax reporting ID or the taxpayer ID. Okay, all those things are there. Okay, the tax reporting name. So these are from the tax profile perspective for the supplier at the profile level. Then payments. Okay, this payment is at the profile level. Okay, you might want to maintain the payments. Okay, the payment related information for this particular supplier, like the bank account in which the supplier will request you to make the payments. Okay, so as a record, as part of the master record, you will input that data, or you will create that data and associate the bank account in which they are requested the payment to be made. Now this is at the profile level. Okay, but profile level, we will assign generally the bank information when there is only one office with which you are dealing with. Okay, or there is only one office for the supplier. But if there are multiple sites in which the supplier is operating, multiple addresses which the supplier are operating, then each address wise and each site wise, there is a possibility that the bank accounts will differ. So at that level, there is a payment tab available under which you can, each site wise, you can create the respective bank accounts. Okay. So payment methods the same way. Okay. So payment method, what is the preferred payment method for this particular supplier? For that, payment method setup is also to be done first. Okay. So there is altogether a different configuration called manage payment methods. Okay, that we will see later on. But yes, that is something that is required, and pre-populated methods are there, which Oracle has defined based on the universal methods of payments. What are those? Check is one method. Similarly, wire is another method. Electronic fund transfer is another, a third method. So there are multiple methods which are Oracle pre-populated methods. Okay, if that is the method that this particular supplier is dealing in, then we can directly use that and default the payment method. Okay, but then if there is a specific custom method, okay, like in case of if it is an Indian supplier, okay, so Indian supplier, if it is within the Indian banking system, there are certain methods called RTGS, NEFT, IMPS. So these are all what certain methods, okay, in India. Okay, so those methods will not be there as part of the global, configuration which Oracle has. So that is where those methods will have to be created. Okay, so that we will see creation of that, but I'm just at this stage, I'm just explaining that there is a configuration required for that. If at all there is a custom method required. Okay, that has to be created in that system, which we will look at later on. But yeah, just have an understanding that this is something will be required. So from this particular method, if there is a preferred method for the supplier, then that has to be set as a default method, such that that particular method will get defaulted on all the invoices that you create for this particular supplier. Okay, so how can you default it? Let's say check method is the method that is preferred by this supplier. Then search for that method and select the row, the correct method, and click on this default button. So that way you have defaulted this as a method, and for every payment, or sorry, for every invoice that is created, okay, against that, this payment method will be defaulted. Defaulting option. Okay, this is again a defaulting option. Okay, so you are saving this. So the profile details are saved, okay, at a higher level. Now the next step is to create the address. Okay, so basically this supplier would be located on maybe a one address or maybe multiple addresses. Okay, depending upon the size of the supplier, depending upon the operations that they have in multiple locations. So now from your point of view, or you are the client, from your point of view, you would create those addresses with which you are trading. Okay, those supplier offices with which you are trading, for those you will have to create the addresses here. You need not create with all. As and when the requirement comes up, or you enter into a trading agreement with those suppliers, then in that case you will have to come here and create the addresses. The supplier administrator will do that activity. Okay, so create the address. Okay, so let me say New York is the city in which, or this is the New York related address. So I will just enter New York as the address name. Okay, and then country. Country, I will enter the details, United States. Okay, and then the address line. So you can enter all the other details, but these are not mandatory, but you can enter it. Yeah, generally all the details would be entered to maintain the data perfectly. Okay. Then this is of importance. Address purpose. This address, for what all purpose will you be utilizing in your records? Okay, ordering and remit to. Basically, do you want to use this address in the process of purchasing and payments? Then in that case, you will have to enable this. That means if you are using a purchasing activity like invoicing and purchase orders are getting created against this address, then you will have to enable this ordering. And also if payments are to be done, then in that case, you will have to enable this remit to also. Okay, only then you will be able to enter the invoices against this supplier address. Okay, so that is the reason this is crucial. RFQ or bidding is basically for a request for quotation. So if there is a quotation or bidding that you want from the suppliers, then in that case, this is what it has to be enabled. And then the respective activity will happen in the sourcing module. Okay. Then address details. Further details are to be assigned. Now this address would be dealing, this supplier address would be applicable for which procurement business unit. Okay, so that is where here at the supplier record level, we are providing a access. Okay, so now this procurement BU, okay, the list will appear to you based on the access which the procurement agent has. Okay, the access to those BUs which the procurement agent has access to, that will appear here. Okay, so I will click on add. Okay, provide the procurement BU, select the procurement BU from the below list. Okay, so right now ABC Corp Insurance BU is which I want to associate to this address because that BU of my business has a trading, or a trading relationship with this particular address of the supplier. Okay, so that is why I'm associating it. Only then will I be able to create the invoices under this BU for this supplier and address. Okay, and then site. What is the site name? Okay, name of the site that you want to associate with this particular address. Okay, so I will say maybe New York site 1. So possible, okay, that this in New York also, if there are multiple locations in which the supplier has its offices, then accordingly multiple addresses will be there. And even in the same location, if there are multiple sites, then multiple sites can also be created. So that is where again you can add another site from here. Okay, so site 1, I am saying this as a site 1. Okay, and with the site 1, you are having purchasing and payment agreement. So that is where this automatically, this checkbox has come up. How? Based on this setup that you have done, this checkbox that you have enabled. Okay, so this particular site is where you will be able to able to do the purchasing and payment activities. So that is where using this particular site or at this site level, you will be able to enter the invoices and the make the payments as well. So in yesterday's session, okay, when we did the invoicing activity, you might have seen that, when we tried to create the invoice, a supplier site record was also associated. Okay, so that is where you will be able to see that aspect. Okay, so it is site-wise, supplier site-wise that the invoices are recorded. Even the payments are generated supplier site-wise. Okay. Now let's say I'll add one more site to this address. Okay, again it is the same business unit with which our business unit which is dealing with that site, but then it is just another site within the same location or within the same address. So that is where I will say New York site 2. Okay, And then at the address level, if you want to associate a payment information, let's say at the address level, you want to have a preferred method of payment, which is different from the profile level, then you can do that again. Okay, so in this case, EFT is the method of payment for this address that the supplier wants. Okay, so that is where I will say EFT as the default. And payment attributes, sorry, bank account. Again, if address wise there is a bank account, then you can do that. But I will not do it at the address level. Rather, by each site, I will add it. So it is possible that each site wise also the address, the bank accounts are different, or maybe it is same. Okay, so let's say at the address level, I will create one bank account. Okay, that is not the icon. So this one is the icon. Create an external bank account. So I will add it. Okay, input the country where the bank account is located. Account number. Okay, bank name. So let's say this bank is the Bank of America. So I will search that. So now this bank details, okay, it is coming from another setup. The bank name and branch, it is coming from another setup. So that is also a prerequisite setup, okay. So bank master has to be created. So we will see that in later session. Okay, how to create a bank account or a bank name, not account, basically the bank name and branch. So that is coming from a common setup of bank master. Okay. So let me say Bank of America, this is the one. Branch, I will have to select. Branch is also part of the bank master, okay, setup. Okay, and the bank account number is associated. Now, supplier bank accounts in Oracle terminology are also called as external bank accounts. Okay, why? Because these are externally to the business and these are associated to the suppliers, and hence it is called an external bank account. Okay. Then you can enter the IBAN number. IBAN is an international bank account number that is actually associated to uniquely identify the international account. Okay. So unique international number is provided to the bank accounts. Okay. IBAN number is more popular in European regions and US and all. Okay. In India, I haven't seen IBAN number being associated to Indian bank accounts. Okay. Currency. What is the currency that is associated to this bank account? So US dollar, let's say. Okay. And then, okay, this allow international payments checkbox. Okay, so this checkbox, what it does allows this basically, if there is a different currency in which the supplier needs to be paid in the same bank account. Okay, then in that case, this has to be enabled. Okay, so you will see this notification, allow receipt of payments in a foreign currency in an external bank account. Okay, so that is why this can be enabled. Okay, any other additional information that you want to associate with the supplier bank account that you can enter, and then you can save the details. So this we have created at the site, at the address level. Okay, this bank account we have created at the address level. Okay, now same account can be there at the site level also, or maybe a different account can also be there at the site level. So that we will see in the next steps. Okay, and payment method we have already enabled. Okay, EFT. Okay, and then I will save and close. So now address has been created and sites under it also has been created and bank account under it also has been created. Now, if I go to the site, once I come back to this page, okay, after saving and close, then I can click on sites. Okay, to see or view or do any further setups related to the sites. Okay, so you see there are two sites that are created based on the things or based on the steps that we performed earlier. But at the site level, there are separate setups that can be enabled. Okay, site-wise, there are certain setups and controls that can be enabled. Okay, so that is what the thing we will see next, because we need to complete the site level details. Okay, so earlier step only the site was created. Okay, with respect to the address that was associated, but then now we need to complete each site information. So click on edit. I have selected first site and I'll click on edit. Okay. So you see site purpose is already enabled based on the earlier setup. And below you see now there are certain tabs: general, purchasing, receiving, invoicing, payment, site assignments, and qualification. So these are all actually at all these levels with respect to each of these functional areas, okay, or the processes, you can say. There are certain controls that you can provide at the site level. Okay, so purchasing and receiving has to do with the purchasing process and receiving process. Okay, so just I will open it. Not, we are not concerned with that. Okay, but I'm just opening it to show you. So there are certain controls that you can input with respect to the purchasing documents related to freight, consigned inventory, self-billing, and all. There are certain activities with respect to the purchasing, okay, activity that can be enabled at this level for this particular site. Okay. Similarly, for receiving activities or receiving process, certain things can be enabled. What we are concerned about is the invoicing and the payment part. So certain controls, okay, that you can enable at the site level. Okay. So invoicing related controls. So these are all the invoicing related controls that you can enable at the site level. Okay. So for this particular supplier site, do you want to default a particular currency? If yes, you can do that. Similarly, a payment currency, do you want to default? You can do that. Okay. Invoice amount limit. So there is a restriction on the amount limit that can be entered on each of the invoice with respect to this supplier site. Okay, that you can enable. Invoice match option. So match option, if there is a purchase order against this particular, that is created under this supplier site, and when you match it with the purchase order, okay, the invoice that you match it with the purchase order, how it should be matched, whether it should be matched at the order or whether it should be matched at the receipt. That is something that can be input as a control. Okay, then quantity tolerance and amount tolerances. Okay, along with the approval level. So if there are quantity and amount tolerances that you have defined, okay, then in that case you can input that in order to restrict the purchasing activities and the invoicing activities, for that particular invoices that are created for the supplier site. So all these things, do you remember having seen this somewhere? So it looks quite similar to some setups that we had done.
The invoice options.
Yes, exactly. So whatever, see, generally invoice option is set up as a default for common, which will be commonly applicable across that particular business unit, irrespective of any supplier. But then for certain suppliers, if there are specific controls that you want to place, which is different from the invoice option default setups that you have done, then in that case, this is at the site level is what you do those controls, or you put those defaulting options. Okay, which will be applicable specifically for this supplier. So what happens from an invoicing activity perspective? So when you create an invoice for this particular supplier, for which certain options or controls have been enabled specifically at the site level, so this will take precedence. Okay, so this control and this default will be taken up on that invoice, will be applicable for that invoice, and whatever we have set at the invoice option level, that will be ignored. Okay, so that is where supplier side, anything that you provide, any setup that you provide at this level on the supplier side takes precedence over and above the invoice option setups that you have done. Okay, so generally in an implementation for those supplier sites which require this specifically, for them specific options are set up, and for other suppliers which are common, okay, and commonly needs to be governed, then for that these options are kept blank, and then in that case the invoice option is from where all the defaulting and the controlling happens. Okay,
First it picks from the site level. If it is not, then address level, then otherwise general, otherwise
exactly.
Invoice, something
Yes.
like that.
Yes. Okay, but invoicing option is only available at the site. It is not available.
Yeah, no, invoice, general invoice options, I'm telling.
Yeah, general invoice options, it will take into consideration the site level details. Okay.
Yes.
And
yes.
if it is not available, then directly it will take from the invoicing options. Okay, this invoicing controls I'm talking about. Okay. And then payment holds, there are certain payment holds that even can be controlled at this level. Okay, so let's say, for example, what will be the business scenario. So if you had any dispute with your supplier, okay, and you, for time being, you want to put every invoice that is related to that supplier on hold, such that payments are not processed, okay, temporarily. Then in that case, you will put hold all invoices as yes, and all invoices that are there for this particular supplier will be put on hold, okay, in the validation process. Similarly, there are other payment hold options as well. Hold unmatched invoices. This we had already seen at the invoice option level, and the same option we have kept it here. So we are saying whatever is at the invoice option level, take that as a default for the supplier. Okay, if specifically you want to keep it, then you will say as yes. Okay, then hold unvalidated invoices. So all unvalidated invoices, if you want to put on hold, you can do it from here for this supplier site. Okay, so it is site-wise that the hold becomes applicable. So terms like, let's say, for example, at the invoice option level, you have entered net 30 as the generic terms, which will be applicable for all, throughout that BU. But let's say for this particular supplier, you want to default it as specifically net 60. Okay, then in that case, you can provide it at this level, at the supplier invoicing option level. Okay, and that is what will be applied on the all the invoices that you generate for this supplier. But for all the remaining suppliers for which at this place, this default has not been placed, then it will take the one that is from the invoice options. Okay, that is net 30. Okay, then terms basis also you can control. Okay, pay date basis also you can control accordingly. Okay, if you keep it blank, then it will take from the invoice option level. Third party relationship, I'll explain later, because there is a topic for that. Okay, so at that point of time, we will come back again to the supplier record and update the details. Okay, then payments. Now, each site-wise, if there is a different payment method that you want to be applicable, then in that case, you can, at site-wise also, you can make the defaults. So it is the site level details. So payments, if you look at the payment tab, you had it at the site level, you had it at the address level, also you had it at the profile level. So you might ask me, from this payment attributes perspective, what will take precedence? So it is the site level that will take precedence. So whatever is there at the site level, that is what will be considered for defaulting objects or defaulting data. But if it at the site level you haven't put any default, then it will look for the defaults from the address level. And if at the address level also there are no defaults and no bank accounts available, then actually it will look at the profile level, because payment attributes are something that you will find at all these levels. Okay, so bank account, with respect to bank account, I will go now. Okay, for the bank account, I want the bank account at the site level same as the address level. Okay, so that is where I will add it from the address. So I'll click on add, and whatever is there available, I will select it and I will click on OK. So this is coming from the address level. Okay, so I need to assign it. I need to assign it at the site level. Otherwise, at the time of at the time of booking of the invoice, this will not get defaulted. Or at the time of making the payments, okay, this supplier bank account will not be taken up as default. Okay, so at the site level, if it is same as the profile or at the address level, then you can select it by adding option, or if it is not there at this address and profile level and you want to create it as a separate, then you can click on this create icon. Okay, and create it at the site. Okay. The primary checkbox, this means that this will be the primary account that will be selected. But let's say if there are few more accounts, okay, available for this particular site level site, then in that case, those can be added, but then that is something that can be selected, okay, at the time of making payments. That other bank account can be selected if at the payment option level, you have enabled the override, pay account. pay bank account checkbox. If it is not enabled, that means that override pay bank account option is not enabled. Then at the payment level, this will be defaulted. Okay, and then it will be freezed out. You will not be able to change it. Okay, so let me add one more account so that we can see the impact of that. This is how the controls and setups that we are doing works at multiple levels. Bank name, I will say this as Barclays. Okay, this is again coming from some other place. Okay, some other setup, the bank master setup as it is called. So that we will see later on. Okay, and then I will associate the currency as US dollar, and I will allow international payments. Okay, and then I will save and close. Okay, now this bank account is also available, but that is not the primary bank. Primary is this bank account. Okay, so if tomorrow, if you want to change the primary bank account from this to this, that also you can do. So select this second bank account, and then this tick mark that you see, set primary, that you can click on it. So it will change. The primary bank account will change now. Okay, and save. Okay, so the payment attributes also we have selected. Okay, now there are certain other payment attributes that you can set up, which are there in the payment with respect to the payment delivery. Okay, so payment delivery with respect to whenever a payment file is generated, certain additional messages or bank instructions has to be sent, then that can be associated here with the supplier records. Okay, then payment specification. Okay, so payment specification, there are certain bank charge bearer code or payment reason that needs to be associated whenever payment is created for the supplier side. Then in that case, that can be populated, which in turn will be populated in the payment file that is generated. Okay, and then will be sent out. Then separate remittance advice. This is something which needs to be taken again, something which has impact with respect to the payment process. Okay, so whenever what is separate remittance advice? It is nothing but the pay stub or the letter that is sent to the supplier whenever a payment is being made, stating that these are all the invoices which are included in a payment that we have released. Okay, now that payment advice needs to be sent via a certain delivery method, like whether it is a printed, whether that separate remittance advice need to be printed, or whether it is to be sent up as a email with PDF attachment that you can select. Okay, at this supplier site level, you can select that option and input the delivery ID. Okay, email address you can input. Okay, and if there are multiple email addresses, then you can separate it by comma. So you see here, enter a valid email address, separate multiple email addresses by a comma, so that you can enter, and then accordingly, whenever a payment is generated and you generate the remittance advice letter. Okay, that is a report basically. You run that report, then automatically the email ID will be taken up from this setup, and the email will be sent out with a PDF as attachment for that particular payment. Okay, so right now I will just remove it, but these are kind of advanced functionalities that you can test out. Okay, so in a real life business implementation, you will see all these aspects, and that is the reason why I'm just hinting on, or taking you through or explaining you these aspects. Okay, so that you are aware that these things can be done. Okay, and these can be enabled and then tested out when in the real life implementation you are configuring the environments. Okay, then comes the important part again, which is site assignment. At the site assignment, you will have to create an assignment for this particular site. Okay, only then you will be able to create the invoicing and the purchase order addition. Okay, so based on the site, okay, for that site, you will have to assign a client view and a build to view. Okay, so basically where the procurement purchase order are raised and billing also will be done. Okay, so that you will have to assign. So based on the access that the procurement agent has, okay, this will be populated. So if you scroll, click on the client view, you are seeing this. So just select that view, and then it will become applicable for client and bill to, for both these purposes. Okay, it will become applicable. And then there are certain aspects like ship to location and bill to location. If there is a location record that you want to populate at the purchase order and the invoice record, then in that case, for this site you can input that location. Okay, now that location is again a configuration which is done by the HCM people for all the master location data. Okay, and then you can just add it over here from by selecting it. Okay, then the liability distribution, prepayment distribution, and bills payable distribution. These are something that each supplier site wise you can assign separately. Okay, so what is the significance of it? So if you remember, in one of the setup, we had given a default liability account, default prepayment and bills payable account. Okay, that was at the manage procurement common option for procurement and payable. That is where we had given the separate, we had given a liability prepayment and a bills payable distribution account. So that is a common setup. But if each supplier wise or supplier site wise, there is a different liability account combination or a prepayment account combination or a bills payable account combination that is applicable, then in that case, you can default it at this level. And then in turn, whenever you book an invoice or a prepayment or a bills payable transaction, then it is from here that the account combination will be defaulted. Okay, now what is the best case scenario or a business scenario that is associated with this liability? Let's take into example. Okay, so in your financials, in your chart of accounts, okay, you have a separate value, okay, for the supplier liability for normal suppliers and for government suppliers. Okay, because in your financial, based on your management, or maybe for other business or accounting policies, you want to track in your financial statements itself the government liabilities separately and the normal supplier liabilities separate. So that is where you will have two different accounts. Okay, so and whenever you create this supplier master, okay, for all the government suppliers specifically, you will assign the liability distribution account, okay, which has the natural account segment as that particular account. Okay, that is intended for the government supplier liability. But for all the other, you will not assign, rather keep it blank, and system will pick it based on the common options that you have set up. Okay, so for this supplier, I will assign another supplier liability account so that you can see how it gets populated. So whatever is there at the site assignment level, that will take precedence over the common setup that is done. Okay, so for this, let me say 200 is the company code, cost center is let's say default, line of businesses trading company, right? So let me say pharmacy, and account is, I will provide a separate accounts payable account. Okay, so I will take this as the account. On the invoice common option, I have put 234x0 as the accounts payable account. Okay, but at the site level, I am providing this as the account. Okay, so you will see when I create an invoice, what is the account that is picked up. Intercompany, there is no, this is not related to intercompany. So I will say default, future is default. And I'll click on OK. Okay, and then save and close. With the site assignment, finally it gets completed. Okay, the details related to the supplier or the required setups for the supplier data in order for us to be able to enter the invoices. Okay, that is complete. Okay, save and close. So similarly, all those sites which you want to utilize, okay, for the supplier invoicing and purchasing activity, for all of them you will have to do all these setups that I have done at the site level. Okay, that is invoicing. If at all you want specific invoice controls and defaults for that site separately. Similarly, payment attributes, okay, like the payment bank, the payment method, and the other payment attributes like the remittance advice and all those things. And site assignment, okay, has to be done. Otherwise, you will not be able to book the invoice or create the purchase orders. Okay, so those things has to be taken care of for each of the sites that are created. Okay. And then contacts. So contacts of the supplier you can create at the contact level. Okay, at that level you can create the contacts of the supplier. So the job title of the supplier employee, the name of the supplier employee, the email ID of the supplier employee. Okay, any other administrative contacts that you can input. Okay, and save and close. So our record is created. Supplier record is created. Now, if you want to search it, click on this, or you can go to manage supplier also. Okay, from the task list. Either you go from manage supplier or directly you search from this search icon available and search for your icon. So Aurora Trading Company INC. As soon as I select it, this will open up. Okay. That's all about the supplier creation. Okay, that's it for today, guys. Any questions if you have, you can ask, or else we can wrap up. And specifically tomorrow, we don't have any session. Okay, please, any one of you, if you can inform in the group, that would be very helpful. And on Tuesday, directly, we will have our session. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So in the general, when you start to create a supplier, you choose two things: supplier and supplier type.
Yes.
Supplier means is it deriving any logic? Supply type means it is a external, third party, internal, intercompany, something like that, correct?
Multiple, yes, multiple classification that you can assign. Okay.
Ultimately, is it deriving any logic behind that?
Yes, I told you, right? There are many places where based on the supplier type.
Type I know. Supplier. There is one more field. Supplier.
Supplier is the name. Supplier is the name. Okay.
Name is it? So
yes.
Insurance. You said insurance company or something like that. Is it part of manufacturing? It's part of.
Just
you choose.
Let me open up. You mean this tax organization type?
No. The first one is that. Okay. First one is a name, is it? Okay.
Yes, it is the name. Yeah.
So the miscellaneous supplies means will it derive anything, or because if I'm not wrong, basically it's the internal and the external. Both are the one always derive that.
Yeah, there are multiple other classification also that you can assign. Okay, that if you want to assign, like if it is a government supplier, okay, then you might want to have the supplier type as government agency. Okay, or similarly, if it is a contractor or a subcontractor or a supplier related to utility services, okay, or if it is a manufacturing related supplier. Okay, so all this classification that you can provide. Okay, there are certain functions that are working based on this supplier type, like the one I mentioned in the payment batch process. If you want to select all the invoices that are with respect to a specific supplier type, okay, then in that case that is possible because you will have supplier type as a selection criteria in the payment batch process. Similarly, for viewing the supplier records or generating certain reports, okay, based on the type of supplier, okay, that supplier type field will be available, okay, or it can be utilized.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So that there are multiple uses, of this classification. Benefits actually.
So the accounting deriving is first it will pick based on the supplier site. Yes. Otherwise, it will pick from that common options. Okay.
Yes. Okay, the supplier liability or the prepayment or the bills paid. These three.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Any other questions? Just
So
don't
only thing
forget.
is, if you can get a chance to talk to Kumar, please ask them to enable that security console for
Yeah,
limited time. Limited time period is fine. Maybe
yeah,
one or
I will ask you.
okay. Thanks.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we need your help to assign our session.lab as a procurement role
Yes,
agent.
yes, I
Then
will do that.
okay,
Procurement agent, you will be able to add it. Only the employee creation is something that will be required. So probably I will ask, Kumar to add the employee. If they are not reluctant to give you with the security access, I will ask them to provide you with the, employee record that is associated. So that then in turn you can, assign the procurement agent.
okay. So still, can I directly add that supplier manager procurement role to session.lab
Role you
through
cannot
that?
add,
Uh,
but the procurement agent you can create, as well as assign the data access that you can do. I think supplier manager role already would be available to your user. So if you can
okay.
go to the navigator and check if the supplier workbench is available, that means the access is there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Acha, don't forget to message in the group regarding tomorrow. Okay. Just help me out.
Sure, we'll do that.
All right. Okay. Thank you, guys. If at all there is no other questions, then we can wrap up. Thank you and have a good day.